Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest, a podcast dedicated to creativity. My name is Scoob Decker, and I am an artist, and your host. PMI is an exploration in meeting some incredible artists, learning about their craft, and exploring what makes them create. How did a little flying piece of plastic recoiling on a string into your hand fascinate the whole world? This week, we learn from a master of YoYo. Julius is not only an expert of the unique art form, but he also teaches the craft and invites everyone to try it out at his live demonstrations. He even has a class in Phoenix to encourage supportive community and inspires people of all ages and experiences to come explore the endless possibilities of tricks and fun. In this episode, Julius explains that nothing beats meeting a demonstrator and learning how to grow, as well as the power of trying. It doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult. You have to be willing to dive into something new and try it. He also gives us a little history of yo-yo, its background, and the different types that are played with and competed with. He's been selling yo-yos for years, the actual product, as well as the fun that can come with it. With his amazing talents, he has traveled the world, performing, educating, and spreading the love of the string on your finger. He's not selling yo-yos. He is selling culture. The second it drops from your hand and bounces back, you are overcome with joy, and Julius loves to see that face light up. Julius also explains competitions, where sets are choreographed to music with thousands of combinations of tricks that are created to tell a story. This episode was recorded on September 18th in Phoenix, Arizona. I hope you look up their work and your interest is piqued. I hope you're having a grand day, and please enjoy this week's episode I've titled, All Yo-Yo. Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, sitting in the Porter Barn Wood and Coffee Builders, sitting with this incredible artist. How are you doing today?
I'm doing swell, Scoob. Thanks for asking.
Of course. Have you done anything interesting lately?
Every day. That's my job. Wake up and yo-yo. That's
Fantastic. Please introduce yourselves. What is your name and where are you from?
So my name is Julius. I'm the owner of allyoyo.com. I am a professional yo-yo entertainer and salesman.
Fantastic. Please pique our interest. You are a yo-yo master, but what is your specialty within yo-yo?
So I have been doing shows worldwide for almost 3 decades. I started as a young man right after I got out of high school. I went to work for a manufacturer. I thought I was going to go to music college, and then a distributor saw me and said, hey, you want to travel around the world, make lots of money, and play with toys? And I'm like, yes. Where was that guy at career day? So it wasn't what I set out to do by any means, but it is what I'm doing now. And I was okay at yo-yoing. They just saw me yo-yoing a little bit, but heard me talk and said, well, we can teach people to yo-yo. We just can't teach anyone to get out there and, engage people. And that was what I was particularly good at. So they started to teach me to yo-yo more, brought me to a few shows, and then they said, hey, we need you to go to Toy Fair. I'm like, oh, Toy Fair, New York. Okay, great. And then right after that, they're like, we need you to go to Singapore. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I got a passport. Let's do this. And that was it. I started engaging in not only helping with the design of some of their yo-yos, in feedback and R&D, but then also working on yo-yo promotions worldwide. Working with distributors from Bandai, Hasbro, things like that. But mostly our own promotions, doing shows, generating interest, going on talk shows, TV shows, things like the Warped Tour, and then just making local kids good at yo-yoing. And when local kids get good at something, then it starts to spread. It becomes a bit of a fad. So that was our job, is to create that craze and generate those sales.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've mentioned you've traveled across the world, you teach. What makes your yo-yoing different than anybody else who yo-yos?
So I do enjoy yo-yoing, and it was my hobby before it was my job, which is fascinating how that just brings people to you, just sitting around, standing, yo-yoing. Everyone has stories about it, but I really enjoy spreading the sport and art of yo-yoing. The yo-yo community tends to be very focused on the people who are part of it. The yo-yo community on a strong day, maybe 5,000, maybe 6,000 people, but I'm going to see that in a week. I go out and show it to new people, and get them interested, and not only get them interested, but provide opportunities for them to continue to learn. Not only, kids can go online, they can type in yo-yo tricks just about anywhere and find their way to some place that teaches with videos or tutorials or things like that, but nothing beats meeting a demonstrator, standing in front of them, trying to learn something, and then have them being able to tell you specifically, where you need to make changes to grow, to build those good learning habits that are going to make it easy for you to go from beginner to advanced in no time at all.
Yeah, and do you have any background in yo-yo? I mean, obviously, you teach yo-yo.
I went to the school of yo-yo.
Do you have any education in yo-yo? I mean, did
No.
you have an apprenticeship?
Well, once I began working at Playmax, which was a manufacturer, it was owned by Tom and Kathleen Vanden Elzen and Don Duncan Jr. Now, Don Duncan Jr. took over from his father probably in, the 70s, somewhere around there. His father had patented the parking meter. He franchised Good Humor Ice Cream. If you go to old parts of America, you could still see Duncan parking meters. They're out there. But he said, son, the money's in yo-yos, stick with yo-yos. And Don Duncan Jr. almost immediately bankrupted Duncan Yo-Yo. So it was pretty fast. He just wasn't the businessman that his father was. Don would just reduce his prices and think, if I'm moving inventory, then I'm doing business. And that's just not how that works. There are certain points you have to meet depending on what you're paying for the product and go from there. And it is a fad. It comes and goes. And depending on us, we can generate a craze. Now, the last U.S. craze that we had here in the U.S. was roughly 96, 97. I was working at Playmax. I had just come on board, and we released a yo-yo called the Bumblebee. And it was a fantastic yo-yo, and I traveled to countries promoting that yo-yo quite a bit. The Bumblebee was the bearing version of a yo-yo called the Pro-Yo, which was what Don Duncan Jr. had invented after he had already bankrupted his company. Now, when he bankrupted Duncan, it was taken over by Flambeau Plastics. Huge plastics company. They make decoy ducks and plastic office furniture and stuff like that. So they simply took his yo-yo and said, hey, your name is our name, so you can't do anything with that anymore. So he started a new company called Playmax out of Tucson, Arizona, which he also almost bankrupted when a new owner saved it for 51%. Those are the people that hired me on to travel and do their shows. And once we were on the road promoting and, working 20-hour days, showing up at new studios, going to schools and things like that, we just have a way of getting people really interested. And I like representing our country that way. When you get someplace and you're down on your knees and you're working with people's kids, they go, whoa, you're really an American? I'm like, yes, I am an American. I'm here to help.
Yeah, and I took one of your classes a couple weeks ago, and it was one of the most fun I've ever had. And always talking with my artists on Pique My Interest, all the artists are so passionate about their craft.
Right.
Yours is very unique and very specific.
I was like, you just insulted all your other artists. What are you doing? They're all like, unique? What does he say? No.
What piqued your interest about yo-yo? You have a background in music, and you thought that might be where you wanted to go with life, but then all of a sudden, it just yo-yo.
I also have a background in being unapologetically nerdy about everything. I don't know why. I have always heard my inner voice with absolute clarity. When that moment where you thought you were embarrassed about something? I don't have that. So I just try everything. I don't care if I'm asking an adult or I'm asking a kid. I'll just be like, excuse me, would you teach me that? I was on the fencing team. I raced sailboats. I was an Eagle Scout. I was in the symphony. I like to juggle. I could do jacks really well in high school. And then I saw a rerun of the Smothers Brothers comedy show on TV Land. And when Tommy comes out and does the yo-yo thing, it was amazing. I'm like, why are more people doing this? And so I went and got a yo-yo. And it was just a Duncan. I could do a couple tricks. I could do around the world, rock the baby, some loop-de-loops, walk the dog. And that was about all I had in my library of tricks. But then I was waiting tables getting ready to go to music college. I really wanted to go to Berkeley and Boston. But our balloon artist, when I was waiting tables, went to a juggling convention, and he picked up my very first Pro-Yo. And that was how I got started with my Pro-Yo 1. And it was so great. It was fantastic. 90% of the weight was to the outside. It was the thing that Don Duncan Jr. did that has changed the entire world of yo-yoing. Because now every yo-yo has been designed like that, with 90% of the weight to the outside, to the edge rim, to give it more, inertia, which is fantastic.
Thanks for also giving a little history about yo-yo, too. What about your upbringing inspired you to become a creator?
Oh, well, there's no spell check on a job application, and I can't spell. So I'd said, I have to start my own company, because I'm never going to get a job. No, I don't know. I've always wanted to do my own thing. yo-yoing was just a talent that I had. They took me under the wing, taught me about marketing, got me on the road. I would have been happy doing quite a few things. Like even now, I'm still trying to diversify what I'm out there doing. But this gives me a way to be in the public eye. And it's something where I can teach people to yo-yo very quickly. Like the immediate self-gratification a person gets by simply holding the yo-yo, opening their hand and letting it fall. And even if it just comes part of the way back up, they go, oh, and it's neat. And then to be able to turn it into so much more, to see the kids who show up at my class can't yo-yo and are now all better than me. It just blows me away, and I have an appreciation for that. And I love making people laugh. People in hard situations, I do nonstop, children's hospitals and burn camps and charities and homeless shelters. And what's weird about it is that I talk about it almost never. Now, it would be incredibly beneficial for me to go, hey, we do all this stuff. But I'm not going to drag a camera to a homeless shelter where people are already struggling, or to a hospital where a little girl has like tubes coming out of her chest. And I just, it would be great if the world said, oh, look, they do this great work. But I am not going to parade those people out. Sometimes they post stuff, and I'm fantastically grateful for that. And I think about that when I look at people on YouTube who almost, that is their business, is to go, look, we help people, and look how much it benefits us, and benefits them. And then they get attention because of it. But I don't know if I can do that, right? I'd rather just know that I do the good work. And for people who've been with us, like Teak or, other sponsors that we've had here in the Valley who have come out and paid for us to go to the Children's Hospital or paid for us to give yo-yos away. Orion Healthcare has definitely paid for us to give yo-yos away. Things like that. It's, I just keep doing it and talk about it a little bit without trying to reflect. I just don't want to parade someone through it. I want them to go through with dignity.
Yeah. You often brought up how you go to children's hospitals or senior homes or schools, and just the fact that you're able to spread your love. Right. Whether that's through yo-yo, whether that's through your enthusiasm. I just appreciate that your passion for life. It's wonderful, and it's very infectious and contagious, and I can only imagine what it'd be like for you to pop into a children's hospital when somebody is having a bad day.
It's a little alarming sometimes.
I bet.
I remember one of the first times that I went into Phoenix Children's Hospital, and there was a girl, and my show is an audience participation system. I am pulling people out of the audience, and this one girl raised her hand, and she had an IV, and I just ran into the audience, and I kicked chairs out of the way, grabbed her IV, walked her up to the stage, and the staff was like, oh my gosh, she's so rough. But then they emailed me afterwards and said, we have never got so many calls from people saying thank you for making our kid feel normal for a day. But that's it. Like, if it is okay, and I was an Eagle Scout, so I'm a field medic, and I'm trained to teach people and things like that. So I'm aware, but if I can push it with kids a little bit to get them to feel more normal, I totally will.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you. You're making the world a better place, and you've been doing it for
almost 3 decades.
Almost 3 decades now. And to me, as an artist, doing it for that long says that you're successful.
Right.
Do you consider yourself successful? What is success in yo-yo? And really, what got you succeeding in yo-yo?
Well, let's see here. I guess there's a couple of different versions of that answer. You could just say, oh, I realized one day that the money from my loan ran out a long time ago, and I was still going. Yay, success. I had a home. I've affected lots of people's lives, but that's the big one, is I've help create a community here in Arizona so that way kids can come and learn as much as they like. When kids call me after they get out of college to say, hey, thank you, you've had an effect on my life. I just wanted you to know that. I'm teaching my kid to yo-yo, and it's neat that there was that season, and that I wanna put out that culture. A friend of mine used to try to drill that. He's like, man, you don't sell yo-yos, you sell culture. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, when you get there and kids start realizing, like, it's cool, like, be into your thing, but don't be down on other people for not being into something you're not into. And I just try to teach people to laugh, to do stuff. Like, I'm no stranger to open rebellion, but, just don't hurt other people. Get out there, do stuff, And the more people you can take with you, the better. Like, laughing with lots of people is better than just laughing with yourself.
Yeah, the class that I took from you a couple weeks ago was such a cool experience to be able to get a bunch of people I've never met, and they're just coming together and they're yo-yoing and they're having a blast, and it just had this sense of community.
Right.
That I was like, wow, I never thought that something like this would bring people together having a blast.
Right.
All led by Julius.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's get into it. How do you start your creation process?
So The creation process is different because I have so many different goals with it, from just how do I, bring yo-yoing to the masses? How do I get more people interested? And that's actually what I think I do better than, say, the average member of the yo-yo community, mind you. With the yo-yo market being so small, and there are so many great companies online that have so many yo-yos that are so expensive, it's a very oversaturated market. So I almost had no desire to go in and compete with it. Well, sometimes I do, but for the most part, all these art house yo-yo companies, they're not really set up for major distribution. They're not big companies. They make a small batch, they sell those out, and then they make another batch and things like that. And I don't want to take away from that either. So my goal is to always sell mass market yo-yos. Like, I will create new yo-yoers almost every day. When I go to a school, we'll sell thousands of yo-yos. It's fantastic. And kids get their excitement. They get into it. They see it. They want to do it. And to watch kids do their impression of me, even little kids, they'll just get out and it makes me laugh. My mom loves it. She thinks it's the most hilarious thing. We'll be at like a big city festival, and I'll bring her to man the booth. Like, she does my monthly sales tax report, which is great because it gets her involved. She digs in. The little kids come out and try to do what we do on stage.
And I'm sure when people think of yo-yo as an art form, what people will think about is the competition aspect.
Right.
When people are sitting there throwing the string around and letting the yo-yo go in and out. We'll get into that a little bit. What are the different types of yo-yo?
So the different types of yo-yo, you'll have traditional yo-yos like from before, where you throw it down, it sleeps, if you tug, it comes back. And that is kind of where yo-yoing started. That's where the oldest company, Pedro Flores from the Philippines, they were one of the first companies in the world to start making yo-yos. Even though yo-yos, we know, go as far back as 450 BC, like ancient Greece, made out of terracotta or fire-dried clay. But really, when they first appeared, when the U.S. went to the Philippines and said, what do you guys do as an industry that we can turn into something you could sell? And they said, we make tops and yo-yos. And so, that's when Pedro Flores was born. You have these kids, you'll see them in like their knickers and like, shirts making yo-yos and tops and things. And it's fantastic. So that's really where yo-yoing began. And that's the first type of yo-yo. Now, as far as other yo-yos, we have, when you saw class, you saw everyone playing with metal yo-yos. And all of them were what we call unresponsive, where you tug on it, it doesn't come back. In order to get that yo-yo back to your hand, you have to create more friction on the inside of the yo-yo by feeding that string back in and doubling it up on itself. That's what gets that yo-yo to come back. But that, which was kind of created out of necessity, when we went to countries with, say, the Bumblebee, or also the Cold Fusion, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the world's most expensive yo-yos. Now, there are definitely more expensive yo-yos. Companies will put out a yo-yo and charge whatever they want for it. But for it to qualify for the Guinness Book, you have to sell like at least, I think it's 25,000. I could be wrong on that. But it's a lot, just to qualify. You can't just make a yo-yo, charge whatever you want, and say, we make the most expensive, because then everybody would do it. So that yo-yo, to get it to come back to your hand, had what was called a sticker or brake pad on the inside. It both created viscous friction in the air and rubbing friction on the side of the yo-yo. When you tug, it grabs, and then it begins to spin up. But as those promotions would die down in those countries, no one could get stickers anymore. So those yo-yos would stop coming back. And kids, unable to get stickers again, had to figure out how to get their yo-yos back. So based on like off-string yo-yos, we'd already seen people with Diabolos, and we'd already taken yo-yos and pulled them off the string and started playing with them like they were Diabolos or Chinese yo-yos. So they figured out that even with the yo-yo on the string, you could feed that string back in and get it to come back. And a whole new division, in fact, the new division was born. Slack string yo-yoing. Because now you're breaking rules of, hey, this would normally come up and hit you in the face really hard, but now they're getting away with things that are almost physically impossible. Where you see, when it was like riding them in the arm, doing the grind tricks and things like that, you can wrap the string into the yo-yo and it's not going to come back. And it has just, kids have taken it and run with it and turned it into this whole new world of amazing yo-yoing.
Yeah, and there's people doing responsive yo-yos, unresponsive yo-yos, double-handed yo-yos.
Yes, 2A. When I was first coming up through the yo-yo contest, when Hans took me to my first Johans is the owner of the Yo-Yo Factory, and Ben is the other one. And Hans took me to my first contest when we were way back at Playmax in 1996 at Birdenhand, which is a store in Chico, California, where the National Yo-Yo Museum is. Mm-hmm. It's owned by Bob and Thad. They run the National Yo-Yo Contest. But going there, and it was all about looping, so two-handed. It was Johans and Alex Garcia and all these other two-handed players, and all the kids from Team High Performance, and I was on another team called World Team Pro-Yo. We were kind of big competitors back then. But yo-yo sales push yo-yo sales. And if a company comes through doing awesome things and more kids pay attention to yo-yos and buy yo-yos, then they're going to sell your yo-yos too. So at first you're like, but then you realize it's all just good. So yeah, 2A, that's the one. But it's hard because, when you make a mistake, you just hide, and it's all coming back at you really fast, and you're just trying to protect your face.
Just protecting your face.
I've definitely gotten double black eyes while doing two-handed yo-yoing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I bet.
People, you in a car accident? No, yo-yoing.
Yo-yoing. Extreme yo-yoing. But these different events, they can happen in competitions.
Right.
Please, pique our interest. How do you create tricks? Is the craft creating one trick? Do you invent your own tricks? Or is it creating a whole set? Do you pick the music? Do you kind of choreograph it to the music?
All the things you've said. So, yes, since way back when, there have been a set of tricks. You've heard them. They have names. Rock the baby, walk the dog, around the world, shoot the moon. Even some tricks that have gone away, like skin the cat, and, gerbil and things like that. So as we've progressed, we've renamed things. Kids reinvent tricks. You go to another country where they do the same trick but call it something else. So you take those tricks and you just start to evolve them, especially when it was the two-handed tricks. It's really just learning to almost move your body out of the way as the yo-yo is going by. How can you tangle these? How can you keep the rhythm going? It's almost two-handed yo-yoing is a lot like juggling. It's the same kind of zen feeling where it's amazing that you're just not bashing yourself in the face at every moment. Now with the other tricks, with the one-handed tricks, the slack string tricks, yes, you have a set of tricks. When kids come to class, we'll start them on like a trick ladder where they'll start at the most basic tricks. And there's a natural progression where you're learning to keep everything either parallel or perpendicular to your body at first. But then you start to change that. You learn to bend the string. After you have those basic tricks, you just start to change it. Mm-hmm. Every kid has to learn those beginning tools and good learning habits, but then they just turn on a song and start to go at it. When they're competing for contests now, it's very different than when I started. We used to have to go through compulsory tricks and then you get to compete in a freestyle only after. But now they get a 1-minute freestyle, and if they do really well, if it clicks better, and when we say clicks, there's always the judges are sitting with clickers in each hand. You have negative clicks, positive clicks, and everything scores differently on creativity or technicality. Have they seen it before? Is it a banger? Does the audience go, yeah? So you're just looking for that. You're looking to take people on the roller coaster ride of yo-yo tricks. Yeah. Is it something they've seen before? How have you changed it? Is it really creative? But that's it.
Yeah, I love watching these. What I've seen is a lot of kids in your classes being able to throw this string around, which you said is difficult in itself.
To make a little piece of very weigh nothing string go moving through the air on its own, just
throwing your arm out of its socket.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so fun to watch these stories happen. Mm-hmm. Each trick is a part of a story, and that's what I've learned across Pique My Interest, is that we're all storytellers. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we can do that with a yo-yo, with a string and a pendulum, and create art, I just think it's phenomenal. And like I said, what you do with it, and as well as teaching other people how to do that and how to accomplish that, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. But I want to know, as an artist, we all run into a wall. We all don't know what the next step is. How do you overcome a creative block?
Ooh, that's tough. You look for it in outside sources. It's tough to get over something when you're standing on it. Like, it's very difficult to step off of it and try to get a new perspective. Every kid at first is very slow until they have good learning habits. Once they have those habits of staying straight, staying in plane, because when you move out of plane, the string touches the side of the yo-yo and slows it down. That's like riding a bike and putting your foot against the tires. So once you learn to either change the plane of the yo-yo as you're moving, you learn to throw hard, you learn all the creativeness that you can put into it. But there is a point where you plateau. So you're slow, you get all good learning habits, then you learn very quickly. They're consuming tricks at an incredible rate. But then you reach a point where they plateau, where now it's difficult to push past and into that next area, two-handed especially, because it's with a 1A yo-yo. When I say 1A, that's the single division where it's slack string. It's just about bending the string, so you're just looking for how to change that or do something different. But with 2A, it's just new muscle memory. You're trying to make your body know this thing where the yo-yo's whizzing past you super fast.
And trying to use your non-dominant hand.
Isn't that crazy? So when I'm teaching people about trying to get into 2A, I'll try to have them start by having their non-dominant hand copy their good hand. Because a lot of people think, I'm just going to work on this hand over here. But I have found that with something repetitive like yo-yoing, it's easier to have them simply mimic the other hand. And then it will learn indirectly from the other side. And then you can separate it out as you go.
And what gets your creative juices flowing?
Music, people, sites, it's all kinds of different stuff. You'll just be like, I'm grooving, let's do it,
Yeah, you said you have a history in music.
I do have a history. So I definitely thought I was going to music college. When I was a kid, I had a brother who died fairly early on, and he was a gifted musician, so I took it up pretty young. I was in the symphony at a very young age, and then I switched my principal instrument from violin to guitar. But I could play almost anything. When you can sight read music at such a young age, you just get into it very quickly. But that rhythm, that ride, that everything, that's so fantastic, and it's very driving. That's it for every culture if you think about it.
You think that's transposed into your yo-yo?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're stuck in yo-yo, do you try and go play an instrument for a while? Do you just like to listen to music?
Both. Taking that break and trying to express yourself however you can, loudly, quietly, whatever. Reach out, communicate, and then try to take the world in. If it's seeing something in the way an animal moves, a bee flies by, you hear a sound, try to make that real, try to make it a part of your show, especially music. An inspirational piece of music, anyone will tell you that. When you hear something great, you're like, oh, I want to do something, let's do it now, and you get up and
that could be the inspiration for a whole new yo-yo set that you might compete with or something.
And for a while it was all this like, Japanese techno pop BDM type stuff, and then when dubstep came out, yo-yo was like, it's fantastic, and then I was on the Vans Warped Tour, so I tend to lean into a lot of punk music as well.
Yeah, you showed me a couple videos of you yo-yoing to Ice-T.
Oh, I was on stage with Ice-T. That was
on the Warped Tour, and that's I can't even fathom that. That is so cool, and how much yo-yo.
He's a neat guy. Yeah, he would bring his kids over to hang out with us, like on the Warped Tour when they would come by.
I just love how yo-yo has transformed with the world itself to be able to go from Warped Tour music to, like you said, some Japanese electronic music.
It's a neat thing, and it is very much a stress reliever. And what's awesome is you can keep it in your pocket. Like, one of the things when I'm working with kids is they will take their goals, and it's always good to have goals, and lofty ones. There's no reason why you shouldn't have those. Like, oh, when I have this, when I have a big house, fast car, dog with a shiny coat, then I win. I'll be happy then. But that's good, but you should also have more immediate goals that are right here. Like, hey, I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to enjoy my life right now. I'm going to pull up my yo-yo, even though nobody else is around. I'm waiting at a bus stop. I can yo-yo. It's amazing how often people have come up to me just sitting at an airport waiting for my next plane. I was in Bob's airport, I don't know, might have been like South Carolina, and I'm yo-yoing because it was my hobby before it was my job, and some kids come up and they're like, hey, can I try that? And I have a habit of making sure that I always have enough in my bag that I can do the show, because you can get to a country and all your stuff's gone out of your suitcase. That's heartbreaking. So I'm like, sure, yo-yo's here, let's yo-yo. And now kids are going, then parents come up, hey, can we try that too? Sure, absolutely, because they have memories, For kids, it's new and they want to try, but for grandparents, they have memories of being a yo-yo person or seeing that person when they were a kid. And now I've got a whole airport yo-yoing. Yeah. And the announcement comes on and their plane's leaving. They're like, oh, we got to go. Like sad they have to leave the airport terminal now, which is weird. And I remember I sat down and the airport terminal was empty except for one other guy. And he came and sat next to me. I'm like, what? What is this? And he's like, what's your story? I'm like, oh, I'm a yo-yo guy. And he goes, no. I got 3 hours. You tell me the long version. I went, okay. And I explained how I became a yo-yo. Very much kind of I told you today. And he goes, what I just saw was amazing. He goes, I think I can help you. And he gives me his card. And he was like number 3 in his company. But his company was Google. Nathan Tyler.
Little tiny company.
So things like that. And it's, people can take away from it what they want. Sometimes it's just hey, would you turn around so my kid can watch that while we're all waiting in line? And that's awesome. But sometimes it's more. Sometimes they get inspired. They want to try it. And I'm always ready. Here, do it.
Yeah. To me, that's what makes you successful. And I love the fact that you have a craft that you can just whip out anywhere.
Right?
You can't a painter can't.
I happen to have a yo-yo.
The painter can't bring out a canvas in the airport and just paint.
So, and it's one of the reasons why I love sending yo-yos to troops. Like, I remember the first time I got an order from Afghanistan, and it said special instructions, call my wife. And I'm like, oh, so I call, and she's like, oh, he's on the other line. I'm like, well, click over. And when you hear about, hey, they were just drawing circles on a wall and throwing rocks at it for fun. I'm like, we can do better. You know, a yo-yo doesn't weigh anything. It doesn't take any batteries. You don't have to plug it in. You don't need 10 people. It just fits in your pocket, and you will never run out of new things to learn. Never. There's kids like Teak right here. They invent stuff all the time, you know, or they learn from each other. I can't keep up. It's just impossible. I'm busy writing shows and trying to make more people want to do this.
Do you have any hobbies? And do they complement or contradict your craft?
Ooh, both. I don't know. My hobbies will be like rock climbing. I love sailing. I haven't fenced in quite a while, but I miss it. Music, filmmaking, photography. Those are also some.
Well, you also said that through your yo-yoing, you were being introduced to different things, like
right?
Fishing in Alaska.
That was great. Oh man! So I went up to the city of Kenai for their 4th of July parade, and I worked actually directly with the Boys and Girls Club for that. It was their section of the parade. And then I went all over Alaska. They ran an article ahead of time that I was going to be there in the newspaper, and so the other cities went, we want the yo-yo guys! So a dealership donated a car so I could drive all over Alaska, and every city had something cool for me to do. Seward took me to a sea life rescue center in the morning, and then after my show they put me on like a cruise, and I had a steak dinner on an island after watching a whale watching. And then Nikitsky put me on a seaplane, flew me out over the glacier, and took me salmon fishing. And I remember we get to the head of the river, and they hand me a pole. I'm like, hey, don't I need bait? And they're like, ha, bait. So you cast, you yank, you reel, you yank, you reel, you yank. By the third yank, you've got a fish. Like, it's crazy.
Well, Julius is over there fishing with a yo-yo.
Right? I could do it.
So you're telling me that your hobbies is whatever yo-yo leads you to.
Right? I love everything. I get one of my superpowers is that I get excited about almost nothing. I just love it. You know, it's just my attitude. It's the way.
And is it recommended to go to school or take classes to build on your craft? I know that you do teach.
Right. So should I go to school to build on my craft? Well, in being a yo-yo guy and working with schools as much as I do, I've had to sit in on PE teacher in-services. I'm probably at this point one of the longest sponsors of the Arizona Physical Education Convention. So indirectly, I've had to sit in and listen to the lectures by the Department of Education. But I also went to a really hard high school prep school, Brophy College Preparatory, which I graduated in 95. And even just the rules that they imbue into their students about, make a clear statement about what you expect in behavior, be consistent, and how to communicate. And then as a scout, I took a lot of junior leader training, trying to communicate. It's important. You know, how do you inspire? Mm-hmm. And I try to inspire rather than intimidate. When I go to schools, teachers are like, oh, why do kids do what you ask them to do? I'm like, because I'm smiling. That's it.
You can't get them to do science. You could teach them to do yo-yo.
I could teach them to do yo-yo and science. But, that's it. I remember those teachers that I had that were awesome teachers. You know, when they inspire you and they make you want to learn more and they make you want to get out there. Yeah, so that's it. I just try to make everything fun. And that's my attitude.
So what would be your advice for somebody getting started in yo-yo? Or maybe we could ask Teak over there. Hey, shout out to Teak, whose family owns
Border Barnwood and the Coffee Builders.
Yes. Also a part of Julius's yo-yo classes. So Teak, can you tell us, what would be your advice for getting started in yo-yo?
I think the most beneficial thing for me when I started was going to Julius's class and finding a community. It's, everyone comes with something they've learned and wants to share something, and then you come with what you want to learn and they'll teach it to you, and it's really cool. There's a bunch of little kids like in the class who will come with something and they're like, look what I learned this week, and they'll show it to all their friends, and then all the kids can do it in the class, and it's really cool to see them learn together.
And then they'll transform it. Yeah, that's how, it's like this metamorphosis of yo-yoing.
Yeah, they'll start like competing with each other to see who can do the hardest version of that trick.
And it's one of the neat things about going to a contest. When you travel to a different region, those kids will practice completely different things, inspired completely different yo-yoers, and come back and share it with the group.
Fantastic.
Teak, what are some of your interests other than yo-yoing?
Yeah, so I do all sorts of things. I play a lot of music. I'd say that's probably my main hobby. I play around town. I play a lot of jazz music, bluegrass and country and whatever. And I play all over the place. I'm into photography and videography from music and yo-yoing, whatever. I'm into yo-yoing. I do that all the time. I play a lot of chess. I do all sorts of different things. But
you held up with like a chess master recently, didn't you?
I don't know. I'm okay. I played against I don't think he was a grandmaster. He was just like a I am or something.
Sure.
So he was pretty good. He beat me. But I did competitions and stuff for high school. I was state champions a couple years ago.
Most of the kids who like join our team, like our team that do shows with us, they tend to be graduate early type people. Their spatial awareness tends to be pretty solid. Mm-hmm. Their lateral thinking tends to be on point, and I don't know. It just comes down to being able to set distractions aside to get what you need to do done in order to learn stuff. So when they make that a habit, they just start to learn it very quickly, and then it goes into they apply it to whatever other interests they have as well.
Yeah, I when I was here the other day, you made me a coffee in the coffee shop.
Oh yeah, that's a new one.
You just showed me your dad's wood shop. We're surrounded by all this beautiful slabs of wood in this cabin inside this barn.
Is that a 15-foot robot arm? What is that?
So yeah, I can see how being surrounded by a lot of this entrepreneurial, artistic world can definitely just set you up for your artistic world as well.
Yeah, I think that's how I am. I see something I want to learn and I figure out a way to do it. And I really enjoy that. I like
It's one of the educational parts about yo-yoing, and so Teak was already there when we met him. Yo-yoing is, kinesthetic learning. We have so many nerve endings in our hands, and when we were kids, we used to fix our bikes, tires, chains. Nowadays, sometimes kids just hand that to somebody and let somebody else do that. So if you don't have that kind of exploration, if you don't try, fail, try again, then you're missing out. But yo-yoing definitely, I can inspire kids to do that more than they normally would, to get that fine motor skill working and that creative part of their brain. But kids were fortunate enough to, say, have a parent, uncle, or family member who's a tradesman who says, get in the car, we're going to go lay floor, go build something. So, I remember one of the first time I came to do the Bluegrass Festival here for Teak's family, because they put on a Bluegrass Festival here in Phoenix, and just to watch Teak unapologetically and unafraid grab a drill, climb up onto an awning and start drilling, and there's just something about those kinds of kids who work with their hands that way, whether it's with sports. Sometimes games can do it, but you have to diversify. Mm-hmm. You can't do repetitive motions. You have to do new things, and you have to explore and figure it out, and that really expands your horizons.
Also helps having a little bit of a mentor in Julius to kind of show you the ropes.
Absolutely.
I'm okay.
Well, thank you, Teak. I really appreciate it. And thank you for letting us do this here.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. But getting back to Julius, I do want to know, while you're flinging the yo-yo around...
Fear. No, I don't know.
People might not get it, might not understand it.
Sure.
How do you handle criticism?
Oh, it's just a natural... And friends laugh about it when we've been out and people are like, oh, my kid does that and I don't understand it. I'm like, me either. Weird. Like, I don't know. Like water off a duck's back. I just don't... Like, if someone doesn't get it, that's okay. I have my own thing. I do my... I'm not going to be into necessarily what everybody else is into, but I'm not down on it either. But once again, not everything is for everybody. Just... cool, do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. I'm excited when people get excited about stuff. Like, I love seeing people, and it's easily my favorite thing is just watching people enjoy their life. When I see, like, a family walking hand in hand at the park, or I see a little old couple, like, still holding hands all these years later, I just, or kids that just get excited about stuff, and even, like, sports. Like, I definitely used to play sports as a kid, but now, like, just sitting and watching a game like everybody else, I'm like, it's okay, but, but I love that it's there for people, for them to get excited, for them to, get involved in their team and do everything. Like, and I definitely watch, like, the America's Cup and sailing and stuff like that and weird other sports. But, yeah, I don't mind when people aren't into what I'm doing. And people definitely aren't. It's rare. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just had to ask. I can't imagine too many people criticizing your work too much. It's
and when I go to, like, a show or a school, especially, like, kids, like a middle school where kids are like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. By the end, they're pretty into it. It's always at the same point. It's right when I come to their class and they have to do it. And it's cool. Like, it's better than just, like, doing some regular thing or having to do push-ups or run, because they get to hang out and yo-yo with me, So, once again, I make that clear statement about expectations of behavior, and then we get into it, and it's a social thing. They get to laugh and talk and interact with each other, and I teach them how to go up and down. But when I show them that forward pass and they all throw it out in front, I'm like, hey, remember, catch it with your hand, not with your face. Like, but that moment where it's flying at them and you hear them all go, ah, and then they all start laughing. And instantly they're transformed into, hey, this is kind of fun, you know? And it's great to see them, to winning over kids who would normally be pretty not into it.
Yeah.
But it requires the danger.
You created a family, you created a community within YoYo. It's beautiful, thank you. But now it's time to clear the air a little bit. Are there any misconceptions about YoYo?
It's not as dangerous as people think it is when they go, oh man, I'll knock one of my eyeballs out. That's not like that's pretty rare. Yo-yos don't weigh enough. They just don't carry enough mass to cause that kind of injury. But anything moving at 99 miles an hour is going to hurt, especially.
Does anybody ever think that it's really easy? They just go, that's...
Sure, yeah. You'll notice that about kids. They just think everything's, I can do that, until you call them out. And yo-yoing is very much a show me sport. I can do that. Oh, yeah? Show me. Oh, well, that's different. The price points can vary. Yo-yo started about... worthy yo-yo started about $8 and go all the way up to $150, $300. But the difference in a yo-yo between $45 and $150 is not a thing. It's they're the same yo-yo. You just like the shape, you like the color, you like the way it. But once you get to that metal yo-yo where it has more weight, more inertia, it's really just like any other metal yo-yos. I mean, you might say, oh, this one's floaty or this one's vibe, but, kids today have no idea what it was like when yo-yos first came out. They're just like, you're lucky they worked.
You're lucky it retracted. And what's next for the world of yo-yo?
I don't know, space? I don't know. What's the frontier of yo-yo?
Are there competitions that happen regularly?
There are. So there are regional contests. You can find most of them. Like there's the Rocky Mountain Yo-Yo Challenge, Bay Area Classic. There's, let's see here, we have an AZ States. We have another contest coming up next month. I'll have a booth there. We'll be selling stuff. Then you have the National Yo-Yo Contest, like I mentioned earlier, that was out of, the original contest used to happen all the time in Chico, California, right by Bird-in-Hand, but now it actually travels around to different places, which is great because it exposes more people to the contest. And then you have the World Contest, which has been traveling around too. Yeah, I don't know if we have other contests that are up and coming. There's Asia Pacifics. That's actually my favorite one to watch. I love the Asia Pacific contest. It's so good. Those kids are so creative.
Are there going to be different styles of yo-yo?
Every contest will have a 1A contest. Then there'll be like an X division. So X division, depending on how many competitors show up, because you definitely don't have as many 2A players as you used to, say, in our day, where it was like the thing. So a lot of times, if they don't have enough competitors, they'll simply clump them all together and throw them into one division. Like, good for you guys. But it's definitely, and I understand it. Like 1A is so creative. To do something different in a two-handed division is really difficult. To come up with some new thing you're pushing it. Like you really got to come close to injuring yourself.
And what's next for you personally? Can you please explain what the Yo-Yo Factory is and what allyoyo.com is?
Sure. So the Yo-Yo Factory is a manufacturer. Hans van den Helsen and Ben, who were there, they're the owners. They used to work with me at Playmax. We were demonstrators. We traveled together. But after Playmax shut its doors, we all needed something new to do. I actually started my company in 2002, and it was based on sales and performance. So I bought 100,000 yo-yos. I bought more yo-yos like in any one time than I think any other person did. And I started selling them. And that's when Hans showed up and said, whoa, if you were thinking about something else, that's gone. You're this now. So, but he also got back into it. We weren't sure what each of us was going to do. What would we do besides yo-yos? We love it. We're good at it. We have a talent for it. We've been a part of these major marketing campaigns. We understand how to take local kids and make them awesome to generate sales in those countries. And we can go from country to country. The U.S. is difficult. The U.S. is tough to kick off a craze. And the last one, like I said, it was in like 96, 97. But it was just a series of events that were in the exact right spot to start that chain reaction. It is difficult. There's so many, kids have so many options here. But in other countries where transportation isn't so easy, if you think about the entry-level yo-yo, it's $8, $10, $15, $20. But it's still significantly less than a skateboard, a baseball mitt, a video game system. Like, all of that is very pricey. So being able to get a yo-yo, take it with you wherever you go, and start to learn stuff, it's great. So after I started selling again, Johan's kind of went, oh, I could do this. And he had already had some ideas, I'm sure, that were swimming around in his brain, because he was a British sports car mechanic all through high school. His mechanical aptitude's very high. So once I kind of got back into it, I'm sure he had thought about it for a long time and just sort of jumped back into it, and was living with me at the time, and it's great. And he came up with the prototype for the Fast 201, which was the Yo-Yo Factory's first yo-yo. Got involved with some of our old distribution from Playmax, which also helped him get a kickstart. And then Ben got him into Toy Fair in Australia, and Hasbro happened to be there and said, okay, we'll give that a shot. And that's how they get started. And I love the Yo-Yo Factory in that they produce yo-yos on a scale so that way they can bring the prices into the range where more people can get involved in yo-yoing, and they stand behind their products to a magnificent level. If something goes wrong, they're like, nope, give it back, we'll get you a new one. You know, they put their time into designing good products so that way they don't have to deal with that most of the time. But people will destroy anything, kids especially. Like, it's defective. But you ran it over with a car, like, you know. But aside from that, they still try to be supportive of the yo-yo community and create it in a way so that it's, you know, it's much more far-reaching than any other company.
Yeah, and I don't think you compete that much anymore.
No. I'm too old. I can't even bend the way these kids. Like, can we see?
So where can we find competitive yo-yos? Where can we see this kind of craft?
Do you mean watch it and see
online,
people?
Like, where can we find it online?
You can just pop online. You can head to, just type in, you know, yo-yoing on YouTube, and you'll see any number of kids, you know, especially in the YouTube day, just showing their stuff, getting out there, being creative. Naturally, if you go to contests, you'll actually see yo-yoers who I like that style. And then you can emulate that style and then change and start to make it your own. I definitely, when I first started, Johan's girlfriend definitely said, we were pretty worried you were just going to be Hans, because my show was very much Hans's. Like, I went with him, I learned how he did his show, but then started to make it my own, and then I went out with another one of World Team Pro, John Higby, and I very much was like, oh, look at how he does this. It's really creative, and then you just start to, you know, like everyone, every time you meet someone, you layer them over your own personality a little bit, take those things, and then transform it into something else. So you don't just regurgitate it, you create from it. So you are inspired.
Yeah. I'd also argue go on to allyoyo.com.
Go on to allyoyo.com. That's right.
Visit Julius's stuff, more of his materials.
Find our shows, come to our classes. That's really, like, come to our class. Like, if you want to learn to yo-yo, come to our classes. And we have 3 weekly classes. There's no charge. I never wanted a kid to go, I can't afford to go to yo-yo class. It's free. Just get there. You don't even need a yo-yo. You can always borrow yo-yos from us. Our classes have ranged in size. Like, before the pandemic, we had classes that were easily 50 to 80 families, and people would be outside the store. We originally did them at Atomic Comics, like around the valley here, but now we're at Strange Adventure Comics. It took us a while to get back into it, and we've slowly been building back up. But no, yeah, absolutely. Come to class, learn. If you don't have a yo-yo, we have yo-yos you can borrow. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring everybody.
And if you're interested to know more about Julius, are you on social media at all?
Sure. Once again, you can find All Yo-Yo on Instagram. You can also find us on Facebook. Just head out and do that. And if you just type in the word Julius and yo-yo, I think I'm the #1 thing on Google. So
fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining me and piquing my interest. And I also can't thank you enough for the personalized yo-yos. You gave me a handful of yo-yos with the Pique My Interest logo on them, and they are so cool.
So exciting, right?
Can't wait to play with them. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Nope. Let's see here. Just, we're out there. We're available for both public, private shows. We do corporate events. We've done corporate events for PayPal, Virgin Galactic. Yeah, we're out there. Give us a call. We'll come to your schools. Schools are our favorite thing to do. So give us a call. There's no charge to have us out to your school. We actually pay schools to come out and do it. We give them $1 per yo-yo. We just have a yo-yo sale. And we will teach all your PE classes for an entire week, which is great. Like, teachers go, we just have to take attendance and then just hang out? I'm like, yeah. Like, that's great.
Touching the world with yo-yo. Thank you. I like to end with one last question. If you could excel in any craft other than your own, what would you want to do?
And you mean anything other than what I do right now?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would really like to get better at, I don't know, flying. I think I'd like to fly.
Ooh.
It's still a pioneering way to go. I think I love to wander. I am a wanderer. I suffer from fernve, that homesickness for places you've never been. I love to be lost, and I have been lost a lot around this world, having, been to like 24 countries. Like, I just love it. When I'm like, where am I going? Yay. So, when people panic, I don't.
Fantastic. Well, I love that you bring your exploratory feels and vibes to yo-yo. I can't thank you enough, and thank you to all my peekers out there. Please let me know if you know of any special or unique artists or art forms you think I should explore. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and can't wait to see where Pique My Interest takes me next. Remember, creativity comes from the heart. Push yourselves. Be kind to each other. I'm Scoob Decker, and thank you for helping me pique my interest.